Okay, Better Call Saul, still one of my favorite courtroom dramas. Today we're doing Season 1, Episode 3.
Pickle. You certainly are. Forget the property damage and assault charges. You face being labeled a sex offender, Jimmy. If that happens, it'll follow you for the rest of your life.
That is insane. Okay? That is a trumped up load of horse crap, Chuck. Come on.
Is that what I tell the judge? Trumped up load of horse crap?
I'm not the lawyer here, okay? But it was a simple Chicago sunroof sex offender. That's not even remotely a...
All right, well, Jimmy/Saul is going to be pretty surprised here. I had to look it up. I didn't know what a Chicago sunroof was, and it's honestly a little bit disturbing. But it turns out Jimmy here is actually accused of relieving himself in a open sunroof. And he's super surprised. He's going, oh, I'm going to have to register as a sex offender? Under the laws of the state of Arizona, he's in New Mexico here, and I don't know their laws as well since I practice here in Arizona. But under our laws, yeah, he'd have to register as a sex offender. Almost anything where you expose yourself in any way can, in fact, get you a sex offender status. It's not 100% necessity on sort of some of the lower level crimes, but it can get you there. So in this case, yeah, they probably would be looking for sex offender status.
This can go poof. You got a plan of attack? Huh? Come on. I know I haven't made it easy for you, but you are the man. Right? I know you got a million legal loopholes that we can dance through. Big bag of tricks. You know, any clever technicalities, huh? And reasonable...
This whole scene, by the way, is just so incredibly real, which is one of the things I like about Better Call Saul. I don't know if they filmed this in an actual jail or if they just went into a jail to say, what does the scene actually need to look like? But the fact that they are in a room, the fact that the table is made of metal, the fact that that room is completely closed off so that theoretically at least the detention officers shouldn't even be able to hear what's going on in this attorney-client privileged conversation. The fact that all of that is happening and that it looks this way, there's windows in the background so the detention officers can see in, but theoretically not hear what's going on in there, very real. The other thing that's very real is that Jimmy here is just thinking, well, since you're an attorney, that means that you know the magic formula to just make actual crimes go away. Doesn't usually work that way. Yeah, he's asking about like clever technicalities and things like that. Yeah, those things exist if, in fact, the police officers messed up in a particular way. Maybe you can get some evidence to, not be admissible in court. But a lot of times people think, yeah, we're just going to make this go away. And you look at the case and go, no, we're not. And they're just so surprised by that. But I hired a private attorney. That doesn't mean that you can make the case go away. It does mean we can get you a good deal. It does mean that we could get charges reduced probably, but making it go away, poof, disappear, not usually.
Can you call back on a better line?
Kettleman's, you're in danger. They're coming for your money. Bye.
I did have a question once whether Jimmy could actually make this call. Because in a previous episode, character Nacho comes to him and says, yeah, hey, I want to rip these people off. The Kettlemans are accused, or at least Mr. Kettleman is accused of stealing from the county that he was employed by. And Nacho wants to come in and rip off the Kettlemans because he says, I like stealing from thieves because they can't go to the cops. Well, of course, Jimmy is worried because the Kettlemans have kids, and so what's going to happen to them? And he wants them to be safe. But I've had people say, well, would Jimmy actually be able to call the Kettlemans and warn them? Because didn't Nacho come to him under a privileged conversation? Okay, so my answer to that is yes, actually Jimmy would be able to make this call, and no, it would not violate privilege. At least that's my analysis of it, because Nacho came to Jimmy and said, I would like to commit a crime. I want to go and rip these people off. And he didn't say, what would be your legal advice on that topic? So it may have been a confidential conversation, but privilege requires that the conversation be between attorney and client and for the purposes of obtaining legal advice. So no, Jimmy wasn't violating privilege here. Also, there's all kinds of exceptions to privilege, and one of them is if somebody is actually in direct danger, if there's a threat to somebody. It's one of the few cases where you can actually violate privilege. So could Jimmy make this call? Yeah, I think he actually could.
Drove drunk into a shopping center and killed 3 people.
What shopping center? Desmond Rojas, armed robbery, liquor store. He assaulted a cashier with a bottle of Kahlua.
Oh, I was thinking Daryl Redwood. Yeah, okay, my bad. Desmond Rojas. Okay, go, start over.
I am not starting over. I'm busting my nut here every day.
So Saul is sitting here having yet another plea negotiation in the bathroom, which I've said before. Yeah, it happens sometimes. But he is saying, okay, can you give this guy time served plus 60 days? Time served plus 6 months, but he'll get out at halftime for good behavior. The whole time I'm watching this, I'm going, what? This is like a simple drug possession case, maybe a second offense. But he said it was his first offense. What is this? Finally, he gets to armed robbery. Armed robbery, at least in Arizona, is a felony 2. Other instances of felony 2s, by the way, arson of an occupied structure, attempted murder. So no, he's not getting 6 months in jail, halftime for good behavior for armed robbery. That's not going to happen. And the funny thing is that the other guy thinks he's actually talking about a case where a guy drove drunk into a liquor store and killed 3 people. So no, in neither situation is 6 months going to happen. In either one of these plea negotiations, you're discussing how many years of incarceration. If in fact they have him, dead to rights, they know that they have the case solid. If they don't have a solid case, then maybe you could be discussing, dropping the charge to attempted robbery, dropping the charge to aggravated assault or something along those lines. But man, if they've actually got a solid case for armed robbery, you'd be really lucky to be getting like a 5 to 10 years type of plea.
What? Hey, I'm gonna park right here.
I don't think you want to be doing that.
Oh yeah? What are you gonna do? You got a poop-filled diaper in there? You gonna throw it at me? You gonna gum me to that, huh, geezer? Oh, ow, 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 ow.
Okay, so in this scene, Jimmy's already kind of out of line, right? He is parking in front of the entrance to the parking lot, but then gets out of his car and starts approaching Mike. He's already looking pretty pissed off and then raises his hand and gives him a poke right in the chest, and Mike grabs him and puts him in what, if you're paying close attention, looks like probably the world's worst wrist lock and forces him to the ground. But just an interesting situation there because, Jimmy would probably get charged with assault. Mike had every right to react. So in this case, they got this one really right because you can see in the next scene that the police are saying, we're going to charge Jimmy with assault. It'd be a simple assault. Here in Arizona, this would be a misdemeanor assault. You don't get any felony charges typically for just a poke or something like that, unless it's aggravated by one of the many factors like you were poking a police officer or a prosecutor in the course of their duties. Just a poke like that, typically speaking, you're talking about just a misdemeanor.
But you laid hands on him first.
Finger. I laid finger on him.
Well, whatever your interpretation, it was still an assault.
Now, this gentleman is willing to let this go, not press charges, if you help us out. You got to get your client to tell us where he has the family stashed.
But guys, I'm the definition of a broken record on this one. Nacho is Nacho Man. Comprendo?
Now, just a couple minutes later, this is where the writers really didn't get something right. They're saying Mike isn't going to press charges against Jimmy in exchange for his cooperation on this other case. Okay, the state doesn't need Mike to press charges. The state can press charges on their own. They already have a statement from Mike as to what happened, or Jimmy wouldn't be at the police station right now. So what they do need from Mike is to cooperate to a certain extent with prosecution. What that means is that if this case were to go to trial and Jimmy gets a misdemeanor assault allegation and he takes it to trial, they would need Mike to show up and testify. Now, even if Mike says, I don't want to show up and testify, I'm not going to do that, they'll subpoena Mike, or at least they can subpoena Mike. And if Mike ignores that subpoena, he can get a charge of interfering with judicial proceedings. So the victim themselves, they don't have that control. They say, I don't want to press charges. The state will say, too bad, we're doing it anyway. I've actually been in that situation 100 times with my clients. It's not a fun one, explaining to them that just because your brother or whoever it was that you got in a fight with, you guys have settled it now, the state doesn't care. They say a law was broken, we're going to pursue that. So in this case, yeah, writers didn't really get that right. Okay, so that's Better Call Saul, Season 1, Episode 3. Hope you enjoyed it.